Here's Papa.
Hello, 45 Alpha Charlie Papa channel, and you got your Martini Henry here, and now you need to reload for it. And you start looking at dies and molds, and you start doing all the research and stuff, and you're like, I don't have $500 to load for this. How the heck am I gonna? Well, you can do it on a budget, and you need to do it in increments. If it's something that I was going to shoot this rifle, I just needed to figure out how I was going to do it on a budget and not put a bunch of unnecessary money into firing this rifle. Now, if you try to go out there and try to find some 577 450, good luck. There is some Kynek stuff out there. You're what, $60 a box on that stuff. Stuff was loaded in the 40s and 50s with cordite. You're going to get a lot of click bangs with it. May get some clicks and no bang. It's old. It's been sitting around for a long time, and they were the last ones to really commercially load for this rifle. There are a couple other ones out there that had reload for them, but the stuff's not available anymore. I know IMA had a company that was making them, and it was like $189 for 20, so quite expensive. But I wanted to reload for this. So if you're going to shoot a Martini Henry, chances are you're just going to have to break down and reload for it. Now, I already reload for a lot of my rifle calibers. I shoot some odd stuff. When you shoot oddball calibers, you're going to want to be able to reload. Now, you're going to need a specific press, a couple specific presses with a specific feature on them in order to reload for this. These dies are large base dies, and the standard die, they're bigger than the standard die. So you need to have a press that's able to accept these larger dies. I bought an RCBS rock chucker. I didn't buy it because I was reloading for this. When I bought it, I knew it could do 50 BMG. Didn't think I'd ever get that big, but it's got an insert in it. I thought maybe I might use those Hornady lock and load type setup. So, I bought a press, and when I bought the press, nice thing was it works for this. But let's go to the reloading room. I'll show you that press real quick, and I'll tell you how you might be able to find a better deal on that. One of the first things you're going to need to reload the 577 450 is a press. Now, I've got a RCBS rock chucker here. Been a great little single stage press. Chances are you're only going to be able to do this on a single stage. It's not something you're going to do on a progressive. You can get a lead, but what you need to know, this is a standard die here. This is a 45 Colt expander die, and I did use this in this, and I'll go over that process here in a little bit. But you want to have one that will take the standard dies. However, the die set you get from Lee is what they call their large base dies. And you've got to take this insert out here. And one of the reasons that they've made this insert, one, for the large base dies, but two, I believe Hornady has their lock and load system that you can screw in here and then screw onto your dies, and it locks in. But that gives you the ability to use the large base dies of the Martini Henry. So you need to have a press that's going to be able to take these large base dies. All right, well, you've seen my press. Now, if you don't have a press and you're looking for one, you're looking for a way to buy one at a good price, what I did on mine is I went over to Gunbroker. I found a outfit that was a penny auction outfit. Everything they put on there is a penny, and every day they were adding 3 to 4 of the rock chucker presses for sale. Most of the time they were going for the $120, $130, up to $140. I had it in my mind I wanted to spend about $100. So I just watched the auction. I bid on them up to my max bid that I wanted to pay for it. Kept watching the auction. Every day they put some up. Every day I put my max bid in there. And lo and behold, one of the bids You know, I was kind of kept careful because watching it till the last minute or towards the last minute. But lo and behold, I ended up getting the press for $95. So it can be had relatively inexpensive. Now, if you don't have a press and you don't have $95 to spend, you can get the Lee Classic press. It will also take these large base dies, and that is a relatively expensive press, something you can look into. Luckily, I already had the press, and I had the correct press for these dies, so that wasn't an issue for me. Next thing you're going to need is dies. Dies for this Lee set that's out there. It's about 125, 130 bucks. Kind of expensive for a 3-piece die set, but they are large base die. There are other ones out there that are a lot more money. I happened to go on eBay. I kind of kept watching eBay, and a seller popped up, buy it now, $87 shipped for a set of Lee dies. He was a slow shipper, but he notated that on the listing, on the auction, that it takes him 7 business days to ship. So I don't know if he's out just in the middle of nowhere or what the deal is, but it did take about a week and a half, 2 weeks to get the set of dies, but that's okay. I didn't have everything else I needed yet either. So a die set, and that's one way you can kind of save money. Just keep an eye out, see what's out there. Something might pop up on eBay or Gunbroker. Somebody maybe bought dies and they sold the rifle and now they're selling the dies. You never know. But $87 for this $120 die set, I was happy with that. Brass can be a very pricey thing for this. There are outfits out there that make some really nice high-end brass that's going to cost you right around $7.50 to $8 per round of brass. Now, it's great brass and you get a lot of life out of it, but that gets a little pricey. There are other guys out there like this here that are using these 24 gauge brass shotgun shells from Magtech. Magtech's the only one out there that I know of that's making these brass shotgun shells, especially 24 gauge. It's an oddball caliber. It's a European caliber. You got a lot of interesting things with Europe, with European calibers. Some of it had to do, civilians may not have been able to have the same gauge as what the police or the military did. So you get some oddballs in there. This Magtech brass is available, but it is available spotty. When I acquired this rifle, nobody had any brass. It was all sold out. The only stuff I was finding was the guys out there that have bought that brass and was already nicking it down and sizing it for $577, $450. You were right around $65 to $89 for 20 to 25 rounds of pre-sized shotgun shell brass. I knew that the shotgun shell brass was about $25 a box. And I have no problem with them charging what they're charging. I mean, they're having to bring it in, they're having to make it, they're going to have some loss. They're there to make a few bucks. I mean, they're not really, raping anybody on it. But, I wanted to keep the price down. I had the dies. I knew that I can use the dies to size the brass. Eventually, right around January, the United States got another shipment of 24 gauge Magtech brass. And so I bought 2 boxes. That was 50 rounds. I figured that gave me plenty to play with. I knew I was going to resize them. I knew I was going to have some that were damaged. There was going to be a little bit of a learning curve there. The first box, I got 16 good cases out of the 25. Some of those cases I gave to the old gunsmith. He's got a Schneider. He was able to cut those down and use them in his Schneider because it takes the same brass to make rounds for that. The second box, I actually got 21 out of 25. I had a couple of oops, but I think the next time I buy a box, I think I could probably get 24 or 25 or 25 or 25. I have an idea of what's going wrong and why it was doing what it's doing. But you're going to need the brass, and that's going to be the cheapest way to do it, is acquire the brass and then use your dies to resize it. If you need to know how to do that, I have a video also that I did on resizing this, and I'll put a link down below. Bullet mold. First, you need to slug your bore to get an idea what your bore diameter is. Now, the bore is, when you slug the bore, the bore diameter is going to be the smallest area on the rifle. And when you measure this, there's a guy that shows how to measure these on YouTube. You're going to want to kind of go around it and measure the largest point to get your bore diameter. The Martini Henry is a little unique in that the gunsmith that gave this to me told me, yeah, slug your bore, get your bore diameter. However, you'll also want to cast your throat here, because the throat in these is bigger than the bore diameter, and it's almost like a 6-inch rifled forcing cone, so that you can actually size up a little bit from what your bore diameter is. So you want those two measurements. I only got the bore diameter. I didn't get the other measurement. I already kind of had an idea what it was. And I went small. I figured I can go small and always work my way up if I had some issues. But you're going to want to check that. What I bought was a commercially available instead of a custom mold. Custom molds are going to cost you about $125, and you can get them sized to your rifle, and then you don't have to paper patch it, just lube them up and go. I wanted the paper patch. I wanted to be traditional. And what I got here is a 457 450. It's 457 diameter, 450 grain, commercial set from Lee. It's the same bullet that you would use in a 4570 government. So this die set, or this bullet mold, cost me $26.50 shipped. A lot cheaper than the $120, $125 for a custom Lee or Martini Henry mold. What I had to add on to that, because when I cast this, they were casting okay, but they were a little oblong. They weren't exactly 100% round. I went ahead and got a 457 sizer to run them through. The sizer was the sizing die was $24. So I've got about $50 wrapped up in a mold and a sizer, as opposed to $125 wrapped up in just the mold. I was going to paper patch because I wanted to go a little smaller. This is more traditional. This is more the size that the British was actually making their bullets, and then they were paper patching them up to size. The nice thing with paper patching is that I can adjust how big the diameter of this bullet is. These are paper patched with just regular notebook paper, lined notebook paper, and they patched up to 465. When I used copy paper or printer paper, they were sizing at 470, and I wasn't comfortable at 470 at the time, so I went with 465. Figured I'd try there. If I need to, I can always find some thicker paper and bump up from there. If you want to know how to paper patch, I've got a video, the link's down below, on how I paper patch these. Took a little bit of doing, but well worth figuring out. It's a new skill that I now have. Another thing you're going to want, this is a 12 millimeter leather punch. Basically the punch is to make these little wax discs. These were made from a orange juice container. You can make them out of a paper plate. But I'll explain where these come from here in a minute, but you're going to want this to punch these out. The first ones I punched out, I sharpened up the edge of a 45 ACP case, used my hammer, punched them out that way. However, it took about 4 or 5 cases because I kept damaging and rolling the edge over. So you're going to want this, and it's only $3.50. It comes from China. I bought it on eBay. Took about 3 weeks to get here, but it did get here and works really well. Powder choice is another controversial issue on these. I went real black powder. Real black powder is getting extremely difficult to source. This is 2F, Crafts and Sons. It's $16 a pound, so the price of the powder isn't too bad. You can go Swiss. Swiss powders are going to be in that closer to that $30 a pound range. But this is made in Germany, private labeled for Crafts and Sons. It seems to work really well. You can get GoX. GoX is a couple dollars more than this if you can find it. But if you can find it, it is the problem. Luckily, I was in the area of Crafts and Sons, so I was able to pick up 2 pounds of powder for $32. If I was going to have that shipped to my house, there probably would have been another $30 or more hazmat fee tacked onto the powder to get it to me, plus shipping. So shipping black powder is extremely expensive, so you need to buy a lot of it to kind of mitigate the shipping costs. Or if you can find some place that carries it on hand, they've already mitigated that shipping cost for you. One of the reasons you don't find it at a lot of places is that the storage requirements for these to sell it, black powder, can be a little bit financially difficult for a business. You have, in order to, you can probably bring in a case or two. It's got to be stored inside a metal box that's wood lined. So, you've got that issue. You can't just put it on the shelf and say, hey, I've got black powder. No, it's got to be in a metal wood lined box, a specific box that's set out. If you're going to carry any more than a certain amount, you've got to have it stored in a explosion-proof room. Basically, those are a room that's all concrete on all 4 sides, explosion-proof door, a real heavy metal door. And so if for some reason this was to ignite and explode, all of the energy from that explosion goes up and out the roof. So, so it's got to be stored in a safe place, and not every place is going to have that. I understand that Bass Pro around me carries black powder periodically. Sounds like when they carry it, it's just small batches that they bring in, and it's usually right around black powder season. That's the only time they carry it. You could use substitutes. I wasn't comfortable using substitutes. I just wasn't finding a lot of information online when I was researching how to load for this using substitute powders. I know there's guys in Europe that do it, but they're very closed-lipped onto how much they use and what they're using. So, I wanted to get good information. I had to do a lot of research to make this round. There's a lot of guys using a lot of different things and just kind of figuring out what was traditional, what I was comfortable with. That's, to load your Martini Henry, that's kind of how you can do it, relatively inexpensively. I was able to load for this, have those 2 boxes of shells, lead and everything, just under $200 for everything I needed to load for this rifle. And now all I need to provide now is lead, paper, and powder, primers. So it'll, as I keep reloading these, that price will go down. But to get set up, it was just under $200 to load for this. If I added in the price of the press, I was at about $285. With everything I bought, I'm talking both boxes of shells, the 2 pounds of powder instead of 1, including the press, it was about $322. So, it can be done economically. If I were going out there and buying, the best powder, the Swiss powders and the $125 bullet molds and some of the other high dollar stuff, you're paying the full $125 for this, for the dies or more, depending on what die set I went with. Real easily, you can get up in that $500 range. And that's what I wanted to stay away from. So for just under $200, I was able to set up the load for this. So hopefully this helps you out. I'll tell you my loading. Standard large rifle primer. That's what's nice about these cases. It's got 85 grains 2F black powder with about a quarter of a cotton ball on top of it. The original loading, they used cotton wool. I wanted to use cotton in this because it's a natural substance. Some of the guys are using Kapok. Kapok's okay. Cream of wheat, from what I understand, I think in the black powder cream of wheat's okay, but if you start using the substitutes, you start getting the cream of wheat starts to bunch, and you may have some issues. So I went traditional. I went with the traditional cotton. Some guys are using polyfill, but I didn't want to introduce any kind of a plastic polyester in this. You got heat, plastic polyester, sounds like melted plastic, and I didn't want to go there. But some guys are using it, and they're using it successful, and it works for them. Then you've got on top of the cotton a card wad. Oh, and the one last thing you need to purchase. You're going to want to make your own lube because there's a grease cookie in here. I had about $10 invested in what I needed to make this. It's a combination of beeswax, paraffin wax, a little bit of Marble Mystery Oil, and Vaseline that I concocted and melted up. It's probably about a third Vaseline, a third beeswax, a third of the paraffin wax, and then a little bit of the Marble Mystery Oil. Some guys who use transmission fluid, I use the Marble Mystery Oil, but you're going to want something for your grease cookie. So now we've got primer, black powder, cotton, our little cardboard wad, grease cookie, 2 more cardboard wads on top of that, and then your paper patched bullet. Everything is in there nice and compact. There's no airspace in here, so I got really good results out of what I've got here. But that's 45 Alpha Charlie Papa channel, and I just thought, this might help you out if you're looking to start reloading for your Martini Henry and trying to do it on a budget, because it can be a little daunting. Everything you need to kind of figure out how I'm going to load for this, what people are doing, how they're doing it, and how you can do it on a budget. So this is 45 Alpha Charlie Papa channel. Thanks for watching. I am out. It worked.
It was pretty lively.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.